Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thanks for joining. My name is Joni Young and today I'm going to show you step by step how to paint this Santa Claus in the forest with pretty lit decorated Christmas trees. I'm using a large blending brush with white and black. I'm going to make a grayscale painting again, just mixing the two with a little bit of water on my brush. And I'm working on an 11 by 14 primed canvas. I'm just going to start by pulling and sweeping in a big large scoop. And I'm going to make it lighter and lighter as it goes up to the top, and then I'm going to pull out flat across the bottom. So the sky and the forest area are going to be a darker gray, and then I'm just going to pull and flick up, creating a soft forest look in the background. Switching over to another blending brush, and you can just use any blending brushes you want, you guys. It's just for coverage, it doesn't really matter. I'm taking more white and just creating a really soft glow here up at the top. I'm going to come down and sweep along, creating little soft hills with my brush with the white and a little bit of light gray. And then I'm going to be drying this off after I paint some trees and going over with some more colors. With a Filbert brush, and I've got a medium-sized Filbert brush right now, I'm going to take more black than white, load up my brush and start pulling in lines for tree trunks and then tapping side to side, smaller taps at the top of the trees to make little baby branches, and then working my way down towards the bottom of the tree, pushing a little bit harder with my brush and making my tree branches a little bit wider. I'll follow through underneath by creating soft little shadows, just pulling my brush back and forth. And here I'm just going to try with whatever's left in my brush, creating another tree. I'm actually pulling off paint, pushing off paint as I do this, hoping to expose a little bit of the canvas underneath, giving me a lighter shade of gray. And it didn't show up as well as I hoped, so I'm just tapping in a little bit of white over top. I want my trees to be all different shades of gray, some darker, some lighter. This just adds a little bit more dimension to the painting. And I'm going to come over to the right side now and just pull on a slight slant and start making some more trees. Okay, so finishing up these trees, I'm going to wash my brush off and take a little bit of white, mix it with my black, and just continue adding little bits of shadows down here at the base. And I'm just going to soften everything, blend things a little bit better, and then with a clean brush I'll be taking a bit of white and softening the very top of the canvas where we have that nice bright glow. Just going to work out a little bit more of the white paint that's left in my brush and create another top of a tree, just something really, really subtle back there. Now I'm going to wash my brush off, take my hair dryer and completely dry this painting off. So it'll be a few minutes and then we can come in with our colors that we're going to start to filter over the sky and the trees. It's really, really fun to do this, guys. I've got a large blending brush, another one. This is a flat one, but it doesn't matter what brush you use. You want to get it wet and choose a few colors that you want for your sky. I've got luminous yellows, both warm and cool, and I've also got some turquoise that I'm going to be using. I took just a little bit of white, and I'm just going to take these colors and kind of just choose a few different spots, softly pulling them over all that gray paint that we have underneath, and we'll get different tones and hues by doing this, and it's really, really fun and it's satisfying to paint like this. I really recommend you guys give this a try. I love it so much, and I love sharing these types of paintings with you guys because I know it's fun to see that, right? It's fun to see you add color to a gray and white painting. So this is actually called grayscale painting, and it's really a great way for beginners to learn how to paint, and you instantly get all these shadows and highlights and midtones when you do this. So it's completely up to you. It's something interesting to try once in a while, guys. So I like all those colors I've got back there, but I want to also incorporate some cobalt blue. I think this will be really, really pretty and bring a nice cool tone to these trees. So I'm always adding it over top of some of the other colors, so it kind of looks like they're all fading into one another and you don't really know where they stop or where they begin. And of course I've got a little bit of water in my brush and I'm just scumbling around. So I'll just keep blending this through, going over my shadow areas with it. And what I'm actually going to do is switch over to another brush. Now I've got a round brush and I'm going to take some white with my blue. There might even be a little bit of warm yellow in there. And I'm just using mostly the tip of my brush for this and very easily and loosely painting in some snow for the tops of these trees. And then working my way down, adding a little bit more blue where I want them to be more in shadow. So where the branches are larger, I'm going to tap and push at the same time. And when I let off, I get a really nice shape to the ends of the branches. It's kind of like a filbert brush, but it'll give you more of a controlled and pointy look. And you can fit your round brush in smaller areas. So it's easier to maneuver than a filbert brush for smaller trees like this. So I'm going to be adding some pretty lights and little garlands and tinsel to these trees. I wasn't originally going to, but it just kind of came to me as I was painting this, and I always trust my gut, or I always trust my instincts and go with my gut when I'm painting, and when I get ideas, I love to give them a try because, you know, you don't really have anything to lose and you don't know what your painting will look like unless you try, right? You get these ideas coming to you for a reason, so trust your instincts, you guys, and whenever you get an idea, you should really, really try it. And acrylic paint is really forgiving too, so I'm just going to add some little dots here for lights and stars and little ornaments. But yeah, acrylic paint is really forgiving, so if it's still wet, you can take it off right away, and if it's dry, you can paint over it. Now I don't have a tree back there yet, but I'm going to make it look like more of a softer faded, maybe with some fog kind of coming over top or in front of it. So I just added little lights back there for now, and the tree will kind of come to life as this painting progresses. So what I'm doing now is just softening, making some of these lights look like they're glowing and they have a little soft blurry haze around them. So I'm just pushing and blending that paint around. I want them to look kind of see-through in some areas, and I'll leave some of them like this, and then I'll add a little bit more white to the very center of them as well, just to make some of them look like they're brighter. And I've got a little liner brush that I'm going to use, and I'm going to create little scoops, just pulling and scooping up and down. And then I'm also going to take the end of this liner brush and do lots of little dots to connect them and maybe make them look like more like a garland, or like there's little beads, or maybe even little lights on these garlands. I think it just looks really pretty. So this is going to take a little bit of patience, guys. I really enjoy it. I find it really relaxing doing all these little dots and brush strokes and dabs, and I'm actually going to be adding some tinsel, and the way that I'm going to be adding tinsel is just by tapping my brush and then pulling and flicking. So it's kind of the same technique as when we paint falling stars, shooting stars, or little bits of moss and vines hanging off of trees. It's the exact same technique, So I'm going to do this for a few minutes, and I'll let you guys watch this part, and I'll be back in a few minutes for our next step. Okay, so I'm really happy with how these trees turned out. They took a little bit more time than I expected. I was just going to do a quick little forest in the background, but kind of got carried away. But I'm happy I did because I think it looks really, really pretty. So now we're going to start working on our Santa Claus. And I've got a little round brush. I'm taking my warm yellow, my neon red, and a little bit of white for his skin color. He's going to have really rosy cheeks and have a nice warm complexion. So I'm just doing like a half circle right now, and the rest of his face is going to be covered in a big beard, so we don't have to worry too much about facial features. And here I'm just adding a little bit of white for his cheeks and the highlight on his nose. The next step, I'm going to take some black and mix that in with my skin color, and I'm going to create a little bit of a shadow around his hairline and the top of his beard. And I'm just going to give him some more of a rosy glow to his face, a little bit more of a shadow, just using my neon red and a bit of white here. Okay, for our next step, we're going to take crimson red, a little round brush again, and start working on his hat, his coat, and his pants. We're going to do his whole outfit in this crimson red first, and then I'll be adding some shadows by mixing black with my red. And then for the highlights and the pop of color, I'll be using my luminous red. And if you don't have these colors, you can just use any next bright red that you have. You can even take orange and mix it with red, add a little bit of white, and just be creative, guys. Even a bright pink mixed with orange will work as well. So just follow along as best as you can, guys. You can stop and pause the video at any time and play it back. I'm just blocking in the red for his outfit, and then we're going to come in with some shadows, some highlights, and then bring all that trim in, the white trim for his boots, his coat, and his hat, and his beard. Okay, so it's time to start making some shadows. Take a little scoop of the crimson red with the black. We're going to mix them up, and I'm going to add it right here on the left side of his beard and where his shoulder is. And then we're going to bring it in between his legs. We'll add some boots, and we're going to add it just kind of on the outside edges of his outfit. Okay, it's time to start adding the boots. So we'll just do 2 little squares for the top of his boots and then make round ends and then a flat line for the bottom of them. We'll be adding some highlights a little bit later on, and we're going to also add a belt on his waist and a little buckle. So let's just add a little bit more shadows here and then dry this painting off and move on to the next step. Alright, now that it's dried off, I've got a round brush that's clean. I'm taking a little bit of my cobalt blue just for some shadows and taking quite a bit of my titanium white. We're going to tap, tap, tap to make a fuzzy, furry trim on his sleeves, his hat. We're going to give him a big pom-pom on the end of his hat as well. So we're just going to continue along here, adding the fur trim to his coat. I'm adding a little bit of cobalt blue at times for where I want to have a little bit of a shadow, but I don't want it to be too dark. And I'd like to add cobalt blue in with my whites for shadows. I think it's a nice color and it looks great with the red that we're using today. Okay, let's take those same colors, the blue with a little bit of white, and start building up his beard. So we'll add this shadow color in first, and then we'll build up with some more white. We'll go ahead and add the trim and the fur for the top of his boots as well. Okay, so really simple, just two little squares of fluffy white, titanium white there for his boots. Now we're going to take a clean brush with our neon red or the brightest red that you have, and we're going to add this pop of color here and there for some highlights and to make it look like his clothes are a little bit more 3D. Okay, we're going to make a light gray color with white, black, and a bit of water, and we're going to add that at the base of him under his boots and under his coat. We'll add a little bit of cobalt blue to that a bit later on, just to soften that. Okay, so now I've got my even tail wisp filbert brush. You can use a liner brush or really any pointy brush that you want for this. I'm just gonna build up his fur on, or his hair on his beard. Now this brush has spaces in between and it's really cool. It is creating that 3D look to his beard, showing those shadows through underneath and making his beard look really layered. So I've got water and white on my brush for this. I'm going to continue building up the layers and highlights on his outfit and his beard, and then I'm going to come in with the buckle on his boot and his belt. Just making his eyes look just a little bit bigger there. We don't want to add too much detail. It's just not necessary. Just adding a little bit more dark gray there and a little bit for shadows. I'm going to clean my brush and I'm going to start squeezing out a little bit of my Viridian green or phthalo green. It's a blue green we've got here. And I'll use that in just a moment, but I'm going to fluff up his hat a little bit more first. With a clean brush, I'm going to take a scoop of that Viridian green and I'm going to create some mittens here, just little ovals, one on each side, and then we're going to start working on highlighting them with neon yellow, white, and creating his lantern and a staff or stick that he's holding. So we'll make a really neat green by taking our cool neon yellow, a little bit of white, and the Viridian green, and we'll add a little highlight on the top of each of his mittens. And with a clean brush, I'm going to go back to my white and add another layer on his beard and on part of his trim. And let's go ahead and add a few little dabs down here to make his boots look shiny. We'll just give them some little highlights here. Really, really simple. I'm just going to blend out whatever's left on my brush, a bit of that white or light gray, just down here in the foreground, make everything look a little bit softer and blurrier. Okay, I'm now going to take neon yellow, my warm black and white, and mix these colors up to make the base color for our lantern stick. Once we've got these colors mixed up on our brush, we'll have a little bit of it to work with on the end. We're going to pull up from his mitten so it looks like he's holding it, off to the right, and then down, right down to the bottom. I'm going to go over part of it with black now to make it stand out more and make it thicker. Now that I've got the basic shape of the stick that's going to hold the lantern, I'm going to wash my brush off, take some titanium white, and start lining right on the edge of his coat, just adding some more of that fur to trim it off, and then I'm going to have it coming out over the other side of the stick. So to make a soft, warm, glowing highlight color now, coming off of that light, we're just going to take warm luminous yellow, some white, and pull it down part of the stick. I'll then create a little rectangle for my lantern using the same colors. So just a simple rectangle with a bright white and tinted with a tiny bit of that luminous yellow. I'm going to add a little dab on each mitten to re-highlight. As the paint dries, it dries a little bit darker. I thought it would be fun to add some holly and berries at the top of this lantern, so I'm taking my yellow and my green again and just re-highlighting the mittens, adding a little bit more warmth to them. It'll come in with some berries using my crimson red and a little bit of my neon red. So I'm just going to be adding a little bit more highlights and shadows to his outfit and also his beard and his stick with a lantern on it. We'll add a few little lines in for the lantern as well by taking a little bit of black, blue, and white and a bit of water. Okay, back to this lantern, I just decided I wanted to make it a little bit longer, a little bit bigger, so I'm going to go over, and it's super easy, just covering over with titanium white tinted with that warm yellow and cool yellow. We'll make it more of a rectangle, a little bit longer and fuller. I'll then add a little fuzzy hay and glow around it. Just taking my little Filbert brush with a bit of that white and yellow, I just made it look kind of fuzzy all around, kind of just dry brushing. Now I've picked up my neon red and I'm dabbing in for some more highlights and a pop of color on his outfit. Okay, so I just want to add some more color and layers over the holly and berries here. So I'm just going over with my greens again and my reds for my little berries. And then I'm going to add the outline of the lantern and a few little lines in there. I'm going to go over the highlight on the stick with more of my luminous yellow warm and a bit of white. So now it looks like that light is reflecting on the stick, a little bit on his mittens and his coat, and a bit of his beard as well. We'll add it to his beard and part of the fur trim on his hat. Now I think our Santa Claus looks pretty cool how he is, but why not add a big sack of Christmas presents? We're not going to be doing a lot of detail. We're just going to create a little oval here using our Viridian or phthalo green. I'm going to highlight with a bit of white. And then I'm just going to have a few simple candy canes coming out of the top and what's supposed to be a teddy bear, but it's going to be very kind of in the distance in the back there and covered with some candy canes and other things, so you can't really see it very well, but we'll just have a little nose and a couple of eyes. We'll be using white and black and red and white, of course, for our candy canes. I'm going to wash all that green out of my brush and go right into my crimson red, nothing else, no water, and I'm going to do 2 outlines for my candy canes in the red first. Then I'm going to come in with a micro mini liner brush with white and pull the patterns in. I'm going to add a little bit of red dots here for maybe some bells or other things coming out of his big sack. Okay, so I just did a simple little teddy bear back there, and now I'm going to come in with a clean little liner brush and white and very carefully pull and swirl lines to make it look like the pattern on a candy cane. I'll do that to both of them, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, what I want to do now is wash my brush off and take my cool neon yellow with my phthalo green and maybe a little bit of white, and I'm just going to create a big bow back here with some ties hanging down or some tassels. I really like all these greens and reds together. I think it looks really Christmassy and really festive. So I'm just going to add a few more highlights and layers of hair on his beard and fluff on his fur trimmed hat and some light in the lantern. And then we're going to move on to creating these tiny little pretty swirls that are so easy to create on the end or the sides of his coat. Okay, with a clean little liner brush, a bit of water, white, and my warm luminous yellow, I'm just creating little swirly design. You can do yours any way you want. You could just have little dots going down for buttons if you wanted. Just be creative, guys. I think this is a really nice addition to his coat. So I'll continue doing this for a little bit and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, I'm just picking up a little bit of my neon red with my white and my yellows to make a warm corally peachy color, just to warm up the complexion on his face again. It got a little bit dull and I think it looks nicer to make it look more pink like this. Okay, now with some white I'm going to have a few little dots here that I'll add to his boots and just make them look extra shiny and highlighted. It's funny, I just noticed right now that I ended up getting a little bit of red here on the far left of my painting. No problem, I'm just going to cover it up and kind of blend it in and camouflage it with some blue and maybe some more decorations for the tree and just kind of make that color work well in this painting. I'll take my neon red with my blue and make little hints and subtle purple tones in this painting that are a really nice addition, and I think it's really subtle, so it works well for this, and all the colors look really pretty together. So after adding little hints of purple that I created by taking my cobalt blue, neon red, and white, I'm going to, with a clean brush, take some white and neon red, a little bit of luminous warm yellow, and I'm going to add another light filter, just a hint of it up here in the sky, and then I'll blend it out and make it really soft, just to add a little bit more warmth. Remember, peach looks really nice with cobalt blue. It's important to think about complementary colors in your paintings. I'm going to finish off this painting by adding a final little soft glow and haze around the lights and call this one done. Thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more free art inspiration and techniques. Leave a comment below, like this video, and I'll see you next time. Merry Christmas, everybody!